well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. I'm glad you've joined us on the program today. All eyes on Washington, D.C., where this week Democrats are expected to take up a pair of gun control measures in the House of Representatives. In fact, the House Rules Committee could get a look at these bills today. Reuters reporting that Wednesday, it looks like, is when these bills will come to the floor of the House. One of these bills, again, would require background checks on most transfers of firearms, including temporary transfers, and including most transfers between private individuals. The other piece of legislation, authored by Representative James Clyburn of South Carolina, would allow the FBI to place a hold, basically indefinitely, on any firearm transfers that do go through a background check. Right now, the FBI can place a 3-day hold while they investigate. If the National Instant Check System doesn't return a response right away, then the FBI can say, all right, hold on, 72 hours. Give us 72 hours to do some more research. After 72 hours have passed, if the FBI hasn't come back, then the gun seller can go ahead and transfer that firearm. But under Clyburn's bill, this would be at least a 10-day wait, and it would really be indefinitely, because after 10 days, you still can't release the firearm. You, as the seller of that gun, would have to petition the federal government in writing, asking for permission to go ahead and transfer that firearm, even though the government hasn't done anything in the 10 business days that it is allotted under Clyburn's bill. Both of these bills, I think, are extremely egregious violations of our right to keep and bear arms. I think they are aimed at legal gun owners as opposed to violent criminals. But don't just take my word for it. We've got Alan Gottlieb, the founder and executive vice president of the Second Amendment Foundation, with us on the program to talk about not only what's going on Capitol Hill, but what's going on in federal court as well, where the Second Amendment Foundation filing a new lawsuit on Friday in defense of our right to keep and bear arms. Take a look and a listen. Alan Gottlieb, thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program. It's good talking to you today.
It's always good being with you, Cam, and your listeners.
So it looks like Wednesday is going to be the day that the House is slated to take up these two gun control bills. One, universal background checks. The other that would allow the FBI to basically hold a firearm transfer indefinitely if they want to, from the current 3 days that are allowed under federal law. Let me ask you first off, what are you hearing from Second Amendment Foundation members about these bills?
Well, they're not very happy about it. The one that would allow the FBI not to approve a sale for, no reason per se, and just hold it forever. Obviously, it's a direct infringement on Second Amendment rights for people to be able to purchase a firearm. And the waiting period bill that they're trying to put through has a lot of things to it. The devil's in the details, and it's not good either. So we're not exactly happy about it, and most of our supporters, are up in arms, so to speak.
Yeah, and it seems to me, you all have been running the Second Amendment First Responder campaign. There have been commercials airing on national television for weeks on end, trying to alert folks to the threat in Washington, D.C. Are those messages having an impact?
I think there really are. The one that the Second Amendment Foundation has been running I think, has had a very impact on Biden putting in any executive actions or orders. And of course, the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms just started one last week, and we're expanding it for next week as well. And that one attacks House Bill 127, which is just a god-awful piece of legislation. The part that bothers me the most of it is that the government mandated psychological evaluations for you and every member of your household is just appalling, as well as a government mandated insurance policy if you buy through the government, it's going to cost you at least $800 a year. And so we're trying to get gun owners recognizing the fact that their rights are really being challenged more than ever before. And the Democrats in Congress and Biden in the White House is doing everything they can to basically shred your Second Amendment rights.
Absolutely. And I know that the votes are probably there in the House for these gun control bills. We're going to be watching the Senate very closely to see what happens. But, I would still encourage gun owners, contact your representative, contact your member of Congress. even if they're an anti-gun advocate and you know that they're going to vote for these gun control bills, they still need to be hearing from gun owners right now.
They sure do, because these ones are what I call the stalking bills. There's going to be much more coming as well. If they get these through, watch how bad and severe the next ones are.
Absolutely. Now, I got to ask you, what do you make of the fact that on the one hand, you've got Democrats, they just passed this policing reform bill out of the House last week. You hear a lot of talk from Democrats about, we've got to rein in over policing. We have to rein in over incarceration. And then you look at this background check bill. And Alan, if I were to sell a gun to you, or you were to sell a gun to me, we were to not go through a background check, we could be looking at a year in federal prison for this nonviolent possessory crime that Democrats are creating out of thin air. To me, it seems like there's a contradiction there.
There's a definite contradiction, but hypocrisy and contradictions mark what our opponents are all about. None of this surprises me at all. Less police on the streets, higher crime, and then they take your right to, keep your arms away from you so you can't protect yourself. I don't understand where they're coming from, but again, it's hard to understand crazy.
There you go. Meanwhile, at the state level, it's not just a gun control that's happening at the federal level. We've got stuff going on at the state level as well. And on Friday, the Second Amendment Foundation and the Illinois State Rifle Association filing a federal lawsuit against the Illinois State Police over the, I believe, unconscionable delays in issuing of concealed carry licenses. This is a big problem in Illinois, not only with concealed carry licenses, but with the FOID permits that are required before somebody can legally own a firearm. You've got a backlog. Well, in one case, one of the named plaintiffs in your new lawsuit has been waiting over a year for his concealed carry license.
Yeah, we already have a suit against the state police for not issuing the FOID cards to the federal court. And now, of course, we have one against them for not issuing concealed carry permits. Under the statutes in Illinois, they have 90 days to issue you your permit if you supply your fingerprints. If you don't give them the fingerprints, they have 120 days. We're looking at people with over a year. That, a right delayed is a right denied.
Absolutely. And, at a time in which violent crime is soaring in Chicago, there have been over 300 carjackings in the first 60 days of the year. We know that these folks are targeting people who are in gun-free zones like bus stations, right outside of train stations. They're targeting rideshare drivers. And the state is putting more barriers in place between folks and their right to protect themselves.
They sure are. And a lot of this stems from the fact that the state has taken money away from the state police to be able to do the issuing of the FOID cards and the CCWs. And put it other places so that they're undermanned, understaffed, underfunded, and it's definitely intentional to mess over gun owners.
Well, we've seen this, and I do believe it's intentional. I really do. We saw in Philadelphia the gun permit unit shut down for a period of months last year. It took a lawsuit to get them to reopen that. And I understand, some issuing authorities, they might have had to make COVID restrictions and, set appointments instead of allowing folks to walk in the door. But as you say, at the end of the day, a right delayed is a right denied. And our rights don't disappear just because a governor has declared a state of emergency. That's not how it works.
It sure doesn't. But the anti-gunners have figured out that you can put roadblocks in the way of where you have laws saying you have to have a permit, and then you just don't issue the permit. Then nobody can carry or nobody can buy a gun if it's a permit to buy a gun. And they figured out, so we pass these laws and then we don't enforce them, and we just, we take away everybody's rights de facto by bureaucracy. And this is what gun owners really have to worry about every time a new gun law gets passed. These are the unintended consequences. Or maybe in some cases, they're the intended consequences.
Right. Absolutely. Well, listen, I would love to see the FOID card disappear. As you say, you've got a legal challenge going after the FOID card requirement itself in Illinois, as well as those delays. But if unfortunately in Illinois right now, the law, the legislature is so anti-gun, you've got an anti-gun governor, that right at the moment, the courts are the best recourse here. And so I'm really glad to see this lawsuit filed in federal court. I hope that gun owners in Illinois get the relief and the justice that they deserve here.
Me too.
Well, listen, Alan, again, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We'll probably be checking in with you, in the next few days here, because this is going to be a busy week on Capitol Hill. As you say, these first two gun bills that scheduled for a vote on Wednesday, this is the foot in the door. Don't think that, if Democrats pass these two bills, they're going to let this go and then move on to other issues. They know that right now is the best opportunity they've had in decades to put their anti-gun agenda in place. And I do believe they're going to do everything they can to try to make that happen.
You're 100% right, Cam.
All right. Alan Gottlieb, Second Amendment Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today, sir. Appreciate Alan's time. We may very well be talking to him later in the week after the House, again, takes up these gun control bills. And I wish that I could say that we got a chance to defeat these bills in the House. Maybe we do, maybe a slim one. But I think that the cake is already baked, unfortunately, when it comes to these gun control proposals in the House. And over on the Senate side, that's where things are going to get really interesting. And Democrats, again, already pushing Joe Manchin, who has said, I know, quit bugging me about the filibuster. I'm not getting rid of the filibuster. They've already started bugging him. Hey, Joe, you know you like background checks, right? Well, you can't get your background check bill unless you get rid of the filibuster. You got to have one or the other. So they are putting the pressure on Joe Manchin to back off of his repeated insistence that he will not vote to get rid of the legislative filibuster, which requires 60 votes to pass legislation. Gun control advocates and frankly, Democrats in general. Rather than saying, all right, maybe we need to try to, come up with proposals that could get 60 votes. Nope. They want to reduce it. Actually, they want to get rid of the sole check in the Senate on pure majoritarianism and allow for every bill to pass with just 51 votes. If they do that, we've got more to worry about, by the way, than just gun control. And the pressure is being put on Joe Manchin. I hope that he has the spine to withstand that pressure. But we're already starting to see when it comes to H.R. 1, the voting bill, Manchin's already starting to get a little wishy-washy. So, well, maybe I'd support getting rid of the filibuster for voting in civil rights legislation. Well, if he does that, then all of a sudden, gun control advocates are going to say, look, these gun control bills, they're civil rights legislation. We're talking about a civil right. We're talking about restricting a civil right, but we're still talking about a civil right. So, Joe, come on, let's go. Let's get rid of this. Again, we've got our work cut out for us. But I would encourage gun owners, as I talked with Alan a couple minutes ago, it doesn't matter if your congressman is pro-gun or anti-gun. They need to hear from you. They need to know that these measures are unpopular, that they don't enjoy the support of 90% of Americans, as the media claims. And the reason, by the way, why these polls suggest that 90% of Americans support things like universal background checks is because most Americans don't really know the devil in the details of this legislation. They don't, I believe, want to see their spouse or their significant other or their neighbor go to prison for a year because they temporarily loaned a gun to somebody who was worried that their ex was going to show up one night and attack them. And that's exactly what would happen under this bill. Yeah. There's an exception in the universal background check language for loaning a firearm to somebody for self-defense. But that threat has to be imminent. And the transfer can only last as long as the threat is, quote, imminent. So what is imminent? If your neighbor calls you up 10 o'clock at night and says, listen, my boyfriend and I broke up a few days ago, and he's been harassing me and stalking me, and he says that he's coming over and he's going to kill me. And it's been a few hours. He hasn't shown up yet. I don't know if he's going to or not. Is that an imminent threat? Are you allowed under this background check bill to loan your neighbor a gun so that she can defend herself if need be? I don't think so. It's not like the guy's showing up at the door, It's not like he's actually there trying to break into the house. So, no, I don't think that would be considered an imminent threat. That would be considered a potential threat, but not an imminent one. Under this background check bill, you'd literally have to wait until the door was being beaten down, and then you'd have to run over and then, here, take the gun. And then, 5 minutes later, if he either left or he was shot, then she could Toss the gun back to you. There you go. Thanks. Yeah, that makes no sense whatsoever. Look, we know that criminals aren't going to pay any attention to this law. They're just not. Legal gun owners, they're the ones that are going to be impacted by this. If we really want to get serious about reducing violent crime, then we have to start looking at the folks who are committing violent crimes. And we know that it's a very, very small subset of the American population. We also know that there are programs in place right now around the country that are aimed specifically at deterring those most likely to commit acts of violence, and frankly, those who are most likely to be the victims of that same violence as well. This isn't rocket science. This is criminal justice. And we know what works. Broad, sweeping laws that restrict the rights of Americans don't. They don't work. They don't work to reduce violent crime. Frankly, they don't even work to reduce gun ownership, which is what gun control advocates are also aiming for. These are bills that I can't even say they're well-intentioned, although I know that many Americans will believe that. But even if you believe that these bills have the best of intentions, the consequences are going to be felt far more by legal gun owners than by violent criminals. And these bills are not worth supporting from a public safety standpoint or from a constitutional standpoint. All right, let's turn our attention to today's armed citizen story. Our good deed of the day, our recidivist report. We will start there with a story out of Florida. This was Sunday. Palm Bay, a suspect in custody after an officer-involved shooting. As it turns out, this suspect, well known to law enforcement, Joseph Martin Martinez, was originally pulled over for a traffic stop. It was Sunday morning about 3:30 in the morning. 4 officers located this suspicious vehicle, conducted a stop. Within 2 minutes, there was an exchange of gunfire between Martinez and officers. Suspect then tried to flee in the vehicle before running off on foot. Police chased him, used a taser on the suspect, but he still managed to get away into a wooded area. Sunday afternoon, they were able to take him into custody. According to local police, Martinez charged with a variety of crimes, including violation of probation for a previous armed carjacking case. Yep. So, again, we have a violent criminal commits a violent crime, in this case, carjacking. And what happens? Bad, bad, bad. Don't do it again. If you do it again, we might not put you on probation. We might actually put you behind bars for a little bit of time. Probably not, but that's what we're going to tell you. Again, rather than putting new gun control laws on the books, why don't we work to ensure that violent criminals face real consequences for their violent crimes? Today's armed citizen story from South Carolina, Chesterfield County, where a suspect fatally shot in the head. The homeowner was shot in the leg after masked men invaded a home. Now, I will say we've got a little bit of conflicting information about the suspect who was shot in the head. WBTV says the incident happened Friday morning. 2 masked men went into a home. One of them shot the homeowner in the leg. Homeowner then got into a fight with the other masked man. The homeowner's son then came out with a shotgun, shot the man in the head who was fighting his father. The masked man who fired the first shot then got back in his car, took off, headed towards the North Carolina border. The masked man who was shot in the head, identified as a 17-year-old male, flown to a hospital with life-threatening injuries, but then later died from his injuries. And there were 2 others who apparently are facing charges in connection with this incident. 21-year-old Noah Daniels is going to be charged with burglary in the first degree, 2 counts of attempted murder, as well as possession of a weapon during a violent crime. 23-year-old Austin Lee Drake also going to face the same charges when deputies get a hold of him. They say that Drake tried to rob the same house back in December of last year, just a few months ago, and was, quote, out on bond at the time of this crime. So again, December of last year, just a few months ago, armed robbery, low bond, Mr. Drake back out on the streets and allegedly involved with this most recent incident as well. All right, finally today, our good deed of the day from Louisiana, where a sheriff's office in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing for a mom and her son. This is a Lincoln Parish, Louisiana, and that picture you see there is a Lincoln Parish sheriff's deputy working with Brandon Addison. Brandon's mom, Amber, actually called the Lincoln Parish Sheriff's Office and asked, do you offer any sort of firearm safety training? Because my son's getting ready to go off to college, and I would like him to at least have some knowledge of how to be safe and responsible around a firearm. So the Sheriff's Office put Amber Addison in contact with Captain James Colvin, and Captain Colvin said, yeah, happy to help. He invited Addison's son, Brandon, down to the Sheriff's Office for a one-on-one lesson. They went to the Sheriff's firing range. They reviewed the fundamentals of firearm safety. Lincoln Parish Sheriff's Office says that Brandon turned out to be a quick learner and a great shot. They said that they were happy to spend time with youth from their community. I got to say, I love this. I don't know that every Sheriff's Office is going to be able to offer constituents one-on-one training if they reach out. But I love to see this, and I would love to see more of this from local law enforcement around the country, rather than trying to shame folks into not owning a firearm, but actually educating them on safe and responsible firearm handling. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to be talking a little more about the gun control bills that are going to be dropping on the House floor later this week. We are slated to speak with a member of Congress about this particular legislation. I will leave the name blank for the moment, just in case, something happens. We might have to have a congressman step up and pinch hit for the one we're scheduled to talk to tomorrow. But we will have a report from Capitol Hill about these gun control measures on tomorrow's Bearing Arms Cam and Company. In the meantime, don't forget, you can subscribe to Town Hall Media on YouTube. That way you'll never miss a program. Or if you like Rumble instead, Bearing Arms Cam and Company. You can also search for Bearing Arms Cam and Company on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and the townhall.com podcast page. And then don't forget to check out bearingarms.com for even more Second Amendment news and information from all across the nation throughout the day. Have a great rest of your Monday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Until then, be well, be safe, be free.